Hey, welcome, hockey fans. It's time again for another edition of Talkin' Hockey. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and hey, the 2018 Stanley Cup playoffs are underway here, and we're going to be doing the Western Conference, the second round now. We've had 4 teams eliminated, so now we're down to the final 4 in the Western Conference, and we'll see who advances. As you know, I don't do this alone. I do enlist the help of only the very, very best. Even if I have to go out of the country to do it, I do it. Eastern Canada, somewhere in a bunker, is the man that some of you follow on Twitter at the Schwartz5454, and you should be following him. That's the Schwartz, the SCHWARTZ5454. None other than one of the foremost goaltending consultants you'll find anywhere, a hockey expert. Here he is, none other than Lonnie Schwartz. Lonnie, what's happening out there, man?
Wait, the round of applause should have been bigger for an introduction like that, and I'm not hearing the love, but I'm getting it from you, so I appreciate it very much, Charles. Thanks for bringing me on again.
Hey, so what do you think? You know, we're doing Western Conference. We both love hockey here. I'll have to say that overall, I mean, not talking just the West, but it honestly was a little bit lackluster. The first round series, I mean, obviously we're doing this on Wednesday, the 25th of April. We're awaiting that fantastic, what should be a fantastic Game 7 of Toronto and Boston, even though that's an Eastern Conference. But that really seems like the only place where the drama was that series. But overall, I mean, did you get that feeling with the first round?
Yeah, I've been giving it thought to that because here we are talking about the Western Conference, and we looked and we broke it down. I think the only series that we came up a little short on in our prognostications were the LA Kings and Las Vegas Golden Knights, whereas the Golden Knights' relative inexperience still trumped a wealth of experience from the Kings and their offensive resurgence from the season. But otherwise, yeah, we had Winnipeg all set to beat the Wild, and then of course, it may not have been the sweep we anticipated, but Colorado fell to the Predators. And then San Jose, they just grabbed the brooms and said,
and they buried the Ducks. That was the thing. It's one thing with the Kings, you know, they lost 4 straight, but you know, the total goals, it was 7 goals scored by the Knights over the course of 4 games, 3 goals scored by the Kings. The Knights had 7 different goal scorers. And, you know, it was a lot closer. But as far as the Sharks over the Ducks, I think they outscored them, 16-4 over the course of the series?
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I mean, I'm looking just now at the statistics for the playoffs in the Western Conference. Logan Couture, Joe Pavelski, Thomas Hertl, Evander Kane, Marcus Sorensen, just that's spots 10 through 15 right there. 4 points apiece throughout that. That's balanced scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they have Burns on the blue line, who's playing great defense, great offensive contributions, putting pucks towards the net. They're getting some solid goaltending from Martin Jones. On top of that, let's not overlook the fact that he's made some really strong saves. He's, as we've identified before, a playoff goaltender. He'll have a good regular season, but he's found a way to find that other gear in the playoffs.
And no Joe Thornton, by the way.
Yeah, no,
did not play. We don't know if he'll be available or not in the second round here against Vegas as they match up. But no Joe Thornton, and they're really close-lipped about everybody. I think in the playoffs, everybody is day to day. It's like, oh, Lonnie had to pick up his kneecap off the ice and they put it back on in the room. It's like, hey, he's day to day.
Hey, he'll be all right. He'll come back in a couple games.
Hey, put a little spit on it. He'll be good.
Maybe some crazy glue. Everybody, like you said, is injured. Look no further. In the Eastern Conference, easily, you look at Sean Couturier. I played with a torn MCL.
Right.
And he put up a performance and a half. But that's on the Eastern side. Of course, we're sticking to the West. It's Evander Kane. He's contributing huge to San Jose. That trade from Buffalo really paying off on the offensive scheme of things. And like you said, though, they're playing Vegas. We underestimated them. I think everybody underestimated them, said, okay, Cinderella season's over. It's time for the real deal. It's the playoffs. And they go ahead and sweep the LA Kings, whose goaltender had a legendary performance in a 4-game sweep. But then there's Marc-Andre Fleury, whose goals against is under 1, who has
9.77 save percentage.
Like it's
2
incredible. It's incredible. But I gotta say, I feel as though San Jose is going to pose more of an offensive challenge. I don't see this as a sweep. But now, I mean, can I say and underestimate Vegas? Absolutely not. Like right now, I'm giving some serious pause for a prediction on this because they, by the numbers, should not have beaten the Los Angeles Kings. Riley Smith had 3 points. He was their leading point getter.
Right.
3 points is your leading point getter. Like, that shouldn't happen. These statistical anomalies shouldn't happen. But even then, you can look at how they play as a team, as a unit. You were pointing it out. Relentless forward check, relentless back check, front to back. They've got depth from the first line to the fourth line. There's no bona fide huge superstar. There's balanced scoring. And they have the Flower playing unbelievable between the pipes. So, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I want San Jose to win. I really want them to win. But I can't do this again to myself. So if I'm going to pick a team, my head is telling me this. As much as my heart wants to say San Jose, my head is saying Vegas is gosh. Yeah, I said gosh.
Well, I think if
you're going to make it to the conference final.
If you look at it, if we just take it from the net out, it's Marc-Andre Fleury against Martin Jones. I think, Jones has played well, but you got to give kind of an edge to Fleury at this moment, considering everything. And what's going to be interesting, too, is that both of them swept. So both teams got to sit around for a whole week, which means, yes, you're rested, but you haven't been able to stay in that flow. So we'll see. A few players got to lick their wounds, which is a good thing, but we'll see what the tempo is in this first game, which is going to be on Thursday, April 26th. And then the blue line, like we said, the best player there is for the Sharks. That's Brent Burns. But, Derek Englund is up for the Mark Messier Leadership Award, no longer presented by Bridgestone, by the way, this year. So he leads that solid group. And then with the forwards, I think you may say more scoring depth when you look at Joe Pavelski, look at Logan Couture, Evander Kane, and Marcus Sorensen coming to the party. You may give that Thomas Hertl. Yes, absolutely. Number 48. Love Thomas Hertl. But I think that Vegas is quicker up front, but you have more bona fide scores. And that's the thing is, if Joe Thornton comes back, how effective will he be? Joe Thornton's not a speed guy. Anyone who knows, he's effective, but he's not fast. So will Vegas take advantage of that? I like this, a good series. I got to go. I'm saying Vegas, and if I had to pick, I'd say Vegas in probably 6 games. If that speed factor really becomes a problem, and if you see San Jose struggle with the speed, it could get ugly. Because if Vegas understands that they start controlling the neutral zone, if they're able to control the way they did against the Kings, it's going to neutralize a lot of what the San Jose Sharks like to do. But I think the Sharks, they're not going to get swept. I say, like I said, picking a series, I always say either 4 or 5, 5 or 6, or 6 or 7, depending on how tough it's going to be. And I say Vegas here in I'm tempted to say 5 or 6. Don't want to disrespect San Jose. I'll say Vegas in 5 or 6. I'm going to stick with that. 5 or 6 games, Vegas.
And I will concur. At least my head will concur, but my heart goes, please, just let San Jose have a shot. Although when it comes to the next series, I'm really not so sure it's going to matter who Vegas or San Jose faces. I'm like, I can see the winner of the Predators-Jets series going to the Stanley Cup. And, man.
This is going to be a great series because it's going to be, if you like hard hitting, it's going to be that. We're going to see skill. We're going to see great goaltending on both sides. I love watching Dustin Byfuglien. I mean, that's like a defensive end. Just, that's just 6'5", 265, and can skate like the wind. And if you want to entertain yourself, look up on YouTube. Just look up Dustin Byfuglien's greatest hits anywhere and just grab yourself a beer, sit back and watch And it's amazing. But Nashville obviously has the edge here. They've got to have the edge going in. Almost got there last year. This year they seem even tougher, even though they had their little moments against Colorado. The Predators, they had one moment against the Wild, and other than that, they destroyed them. So what do you think of this one here? I mean,
well, we can look at the scoring. Again, it's easy to start with the scoring, and when you have Austin Watson, Colton Sissons, and Philip Forsberg taking 3 out of the 4 top spots in the West, and then Matthias Ekholm finally starting to produce defensively, and then even Roman Josi was held to no goals.
Right.
How do you hold Roman Josi and stifle PK Subban enough, all the while winning a series? If those guys start putting up points, look, I like Winnipeg, and they've got some great offense too. They've really done a good job of balanced scoring, some strong defense, coming back from some injuries. Like Tyler Myers is already coming back. And Tiger Myers, I'm kind of missing those 2 letters. I'm jumbling here. It's like I'm playing a word game. Tyler Myers looked like he snapped his ankle. He caught an edge between the ice and the boards. It looked like his ankle's toast. It's one of those uncomfortable injuries that you look at and go, that's like Moises Alou sliding into second base. I don't ever want to see that again kind of injury.
I remember that play.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he's back. So, Jacob Trouba, if he's healthy, Dustin Byfuglien, but it didn't matter. They cycled through and they still played well. Nikolai Ehlers, he was injured. Didn't matter. They're still putting up points. And you're right, they obliterated the Wild, even though they did lose Suter and they did lose Parise.
Right.
Majority of the run. I don't think that really would have mattered. But from player to player, line to line, overall balance, I really think it's going to be a difficult task for Winnipeg to beat the defending Western Conference champions, being the Nashville Predators. From the goal out, both Vezina candidates, Hellebuck having a great year and an even stronger playoff. He's having a stronger playoff than Pekka Rinne is. However, both Vezina Trophy candidates, and you've got, like we said, from there and out, if you want to measure it, the defense. Are you really going to give the edge to Winnipeg when you look player for player? You've got Josi, Subban, Ekholm, and Dan Ellis. Not Dan Ellis, sorry, Ryan Ellis.
Right.
And Ellis, former goaltender for the Predators. Ryan Ellis, compared to the lineup on Winnipeg, who's had some bang-ups. I'm going to go defensive nod to the Predators. And then the offense, again, both very balanced, but the depth seems to just keep rearing its head for them. And that's just the numbers. That's just the numbers. Then look at the intangibles. Yeah, there are some really exciting players in Winnipeg. You've got Line A, you've got Scheifele, who is one of the more underrated centers in the league. But Philip Forsberg has 2 highlight reel goals already in the first round. This is like, everybody's pointing this out, and we've pointed it out as well. Marty Erat, the big trade that Washington made when they had a playoff run a few years ago, and it's like, yeah, we'll give up on this Forsberg guy, no problem. We got depth. And now he's like the crown jewel of the offense. And Ryan Johansson's even performing well. A big ticket contract, I might add, that people were a little disappointed about during the regular season. So while he's contributing, the wingers are contributing. Geez, Victor Arvidsson, he scored one of the goals of the playoffs too. He didn't even have full extension on his stick.
And Mr. Underwood playing too. Mr. Underwood came back to play.
And by the way, did anybody catch Victor Arvidsson trying to pull the Michigan? Does everybody remember what the Michigan is?
Yes, I do.
You do. For the uninitiated, the Michigan is the lacrosse move from behind the net where you whip it onto the stick blade and just try and wrap it around and tuck it under the bar.
Yep.
I mean, whoa. Arvidsson, if he hit that during the playoffs, oh my God. Then everybody in Michigan would have been able to go, sieve, 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 sieve. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. We want more goals, which is, by the way, one of the greatest chants in all of hockey, not just collegiate hockey, NHL hockey, pro hockey. That is the goal chant that Michigan State yells at the goalie, the visiting goalie, after every single goal. How demoralizing it is it to have 6,000 people chant, "It's all your fault. It's all your fault." I'd love to know, because if I heard that, I'd be like, oh God.
Hey, you goalies have a tough job. I mean, even at the NHL level, when a goal gets scored on you and you're the visiting team, they actually put a spotlight on you.
Yeah. And
they put a spotlight on you while the whole crowd cheers and jeers you and taunts you. And it's okay.
And by the way, while we're on the subject of this series, yes, Varlamov was injured. That likely played a factor into how the series unfolded, because he is a bona fide #1 goaltender.
Right.
Bernier stepped in for Colorado. He did a decent job, but then started to falter.
Yeah.
And then Andrew Hammond comes in. Now, if you don't recall who Andrew Hammond is, he's the Hamburglar. And he had a very strong AHL season a couple years back, got brought into Ottawa. They all thought he'd be the savior. He gets traded, and everybody's scratching their heads like, this guy had so much success. Why isn't he in the NHL as a starter? I know I'm using my kind of average drunk beer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I get that.
And it's like, man, he won us that one game. Why aren't we starting him all the time? The guy had 2 starts in the playoffs, and he lost one of them. Like,
yeah.
The broad scheme of things for goaltending, and this is why I like to speak to it, is you need a large body of evidence to support a career and to give certain degrees of hype. Yes, if you go all the way back to the 70s when Ken Dryden won the Conn Smythe Trophy as a rookie in Montreal, but then he won up that, and then the following season won the Calder as Rookie of the Year, right? So you can't just look at the playoff blueprint and say that's what's defining them. Same thing applies to guys like Hammond. They might have a game or two, especially even in the playoffs, but then when you watch footage, you really start to break that kind of goaltender down and go, well, all right, he had one good game. That doesn't mean that he's going to carry you like Patrick Waugh did even more recently for Montreal back in the 80s in 86, right?
Or 93.
Or even, 93 was a year of legend. But Hammond had a good first game. Everybody's praising it, saying, oh, he's going to carry them to the cup. I'm like, hold on a second. It was one game for a guy who spent the entire year in the American Hockey League. And not to disrespect the American League, it's the second best league in North America. You have a chance to go and watch an AHL game. Someone says, here's some tickets. You're not going to be like, I may as well go watch my son play his single A tournament. No, you shouldn't. It's AHL hockey. Go and watch.
Right.
But there is that leap, and you need that consistency. Hammond doesn't have that. So can we stop the Hamburglar train? I know it's a great gimmick, and he's had success. All the power to him. But at the NHL level, you need a larger body of evidence before you start getting like Bernier. You can speak to this.
Yes.
Or directly. Everybody hyped Bernier is the next coming. And wait, who's still the starting goalie in Los Angeles?
Yeah, exactly.
Who?
And Bernier, Jonathan Quick. Absolutely. And Bernier's had his chances in a lot of different places. Had his chance in Toronto, had his chance in Anaheim. And, now he's falling on his face in Colorado.
Yeah,
not that he doesn't have flawless technique, like everyone said, but the AHL is full of goaltenders with, quote, flawless technique, but there's something else to it. And let me ask you something, though, with the Wild, going to the Minnesota Wild, what do you think now? They got rid of Chuck Fletcher, their GM. Now, is it fair? And I see things like this happen. So you wait until your team has their best defenseman injured and Zach Parise out, and then they lose a playoff series to a better team, and you want to can the GM.
I think the overall sentiment, though, is that while there's been consistency, there's a big plateau. And whenever that starts to happen in an organization that doesn't really do well in the playoffs, no matter how you jumble, no matter how you trade towards the deadline, you want that shift in direction. And they gave great respect to his accomplishments while he was part of the organization. But when I read that, I wasn't terribly shocked because, you've got a perennial Vezina Trophy candidate in Devin Dubnyk, and his career has sparkled since joining the Wild.
Right.
But while you get some of these little pieces, the overall picture still never adds up to a dominating team. They get a coach in Bruce Boudreau who you think is going to put them over the edge. didn't happen. You make two big signings in Parise and in Suter a few years back, one of the two richest contracts in the National Hockey League at the time. And while one gets injured frequently and the other is a defensive stalwart, again, not enough surrounding cast to make it happen. So you needed that shakeup. Who makes those decisions? Well, it's the general manager. So somebody else is going to get a great GM out of it, and maybe someone has a slightly different blueprint that adds that piece that gets you over that plateau and brings you to that next level, because they just haven't been able to do it.
I kind of look at them, they're maybe in the same spot that Nashville was, say, several years ago, where they had the roster, they didn't have you need a few some good snipers. And that's what Nashville added. They added some good natural scorers, and that changed everything, because Minnesota, one of the things I always saw with them was they would be dominating play, controlling the game, but always it was these one-goal games that they were trying to win down the stretch. And who did they have who could really bury the biscuit when they needed to? Yeah, it's even Parise, he plays hard, but I mean just stone-cold assassin type forwards who, if they get an area, you give them a 3-inch area of the net, a 3x3 little corner, they're going to hit it.
And you're absolutely right. They don't have that superstar that defines the team. They get good balanced efforts, but that's not enough. Like when you look at a team like Pittsburgh, for example, who is balanced, but you have two bona fide superstars, one of which is injured right now, in Yevgeny Malkin, but they'll take over a game entirely on their own and find that space that you need to bury the team. Nashville is a great example. You brought them up, and I talked about him earlier. Philip Forsberg seems to be that guy that if you need him to get that extra gear in and find that highlight reel goal to put your team over the edge and kill the confidence of the other team and bury them, you don't have that. In all the credit to Eric Stahl for a bounce back season, but his body of work since he had that breakout year in Carolina, what was it, over a decade ago now? It was about a decade now?
Since 2006.
Yeah.
When they won the cup, beat Edmonton.
Yeah, so you have that incredible breakout year, but you waited, I guess you could almost fairly say, a 10-year gap before you revisit that goal. Nobody's going to bank on a 10-year gap for you to have that success. That all of a sudden you become the anomaly season, right? So they don't. You bring up an excellent point about a team that's got success but doesn't have enough to go over that. And again, Parise, as hard as he plays, the guy seemingly is just so Mr. Glass over the last years, it's inconsequential.
Well, it's what it is when someone plays a heavy game like Parise plays, after a while, it starts to build up. And you look at it in recent seasons, he's missing 15 games, he's missing 20 games a year. And I think one of the uncomfortable transitions is when you have to transition away from someone like Parise, who is a great player, who did give us all when he played, who's got that pedigree. I watched JP Parise play way back when, and no one was tougher than him in the corners. So he's got that going for him. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Minnesota. But let's get to the official call here.
Yes.
I'm going with
the Predators.
And are you saying, would you say in 4 or 5, in 5 or 6, or in 6 or 7 games? How do you see this one?
You know what? Considering the amount of trouble Nathan McKinnon and company alone gave them in Colorado, I'm not going to be surprised to see this go 7 games. This is going to be good goaltending, hopefully elite level goaltending, and that's for both sides. And we're going to see 2 fairly evenly balanced teams in terms of what they can bring. And Laine is having another pretty strong, he's having a strong, not just regular season, that goes without question. Right. He's having a strong playoff in his sophomore year. So I'm going to pick the Predators just because they're overall, especially on the blue line, there's that extra depth, that extra little something to them that, like I said, when even Roman Josi and PK Subban aren't contributing on the score sheet as much.
Right.
And if those guys wake up, then there's problems. But if you look at Winnipeg on that side, you got a couple, if Tyler Myers, right? Yeah, he's gotten injured, but if he's playing at his capacity, are you really going to put Tyler Myers on the same level as a Roman Yossi or a PK Subban. Same thing applies to Jacob Trouba. As good a young defenseman as he is, are you going to put him toe-to-toe? The only defenseman that Winnipeg has that you can legitimately put in the conversation with at least two Nashville defensemen is Dustin Byfuglien.
Right.
Not taken away from him, not taken away from his incredible skill, his linebacker stature on ice. It's incredible to watch. He can take over a lot of game, but the balanced attack and the overall lineup that Nashville has, if Pekka Rinne can win on the road, this is a team that's going to win in 7 games.
And also, one of the things I think that would give me a little bit of pause about Nashville is when I look at that Colorado series, even though, like I said, with great teams, sometimes that first round is the round where you got to take them out. Otherwise, they create a monster. But they really kind of made a living off of Colorado mistakes in that first round. Is Winnipeg going to make those mistakes, or are they going to have to honestly, and I say it honestly, go out and win the series? Because you're not getting given a gift goal or two, every game like Colorado gave them. So that may factor in. So I'm going to go ahead and side with you here. I like Nashville, and you got to go with the experience as well. And yeah, Nashville in 6 or 7. And this is going to be, it'll be kind of under the radar for everyone but those in Manitoba. But this is going to be a great series. And I'm saying Nashville in 6 or 7, just like you are. But I think Nashville will prevail here.
And two really, really loud buildings. And one thing that I don't think we really touched on yet is Nashville went there last year. They were in it. And if you look at teams of the past where they were that close, like you felt they were on the cusp. Think of the Detroit Red Wings from the 90s, right? They had to lose in a Stanley Cup final before they hoisted the holiest of holy grails.
Right.
And even more to that point, the New Jersey Devils, right? New Jersey Devils lost in that guarantee from Messier. Don't even ask me to get more in depth on that.
Well, hey, Tortorella says that guarantee was pure genius after he guaranteed a Game 7. But you know what? That's the East. We'll talk about that next time. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. But the whole point is that New Jersey had to learn how to lose in a big game in order to proceed and get over that. A lot of these kinds of setbacks generally lead elite teams, at least with good leadership and a good core, to greater success. And that's why it's dangerous to look at a team like Tampa as well. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the Eastern Conference. Once the Leafs and Bruins settle it all up later today in Boston, we'll finally get a picture of the East. But right now, we've discussed the West, and we're both calling the Vegas Golden Knights against the Nashville Predators at the beginning of the year. If anybody called that, guess what? Your ticket should get cashed in Vegas right about now, because you're doing all right. You're doing better financially than me. I can't speak for you, but that's probably about a good 3 months worth of wages for me.
All right, there we go, people. So as we said, we're both going with Vegas to take care of business against San Jose, and then going with Nashville to win the hard-hitting series against Winnipeg. And remember, everybody, you can download the Podbean app on your smartphone, and you can take us with you wherever you go. And we got Talking Hockey. There's also NFL Football Talk, another show. We also cover NBA basketball and another one. So under the Inside Sports umbrella, Inside Sports presented by Humanican Media, and we got you covered. Just Podbean, and then you want to go to Inside Sports, and you'll have all of the respective podcasts lined up right there for you. You can listen at your leisure, no matter where you happen to be in the world. So remember, follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Lonnie on Twitter at The Schwartz5454, and that's SCHWARTZ5454. So for Mr. Lonnie Schwartz, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thanks for joining us. This is Talking Hockey, and make sure that you check out our Eastern Conference semifinal preview show, and that'll be available shortly. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.